the opportunity to talk to Blood Cultures over Zoom audio. This is actually the very first audio recorded interview with Blood Cultures, which is such an honor. Such an awesome dude. And I'm not using his name because I don't know his name. No one knows his name. Well, he knows his name, and I'm sure his band members know his name. And very few people know his name is where I'm going with this. Blood Cultures talked about where he grew up and how he got into music. And he talked about starting this project in which he remains completely anonymous. He wears stuff that covers his face, black hoods when they play live, just completely anonymous. He talks about how he's trying to keep the relationship between the listener and the music as pure as possible. He has an amazing outlook. He talks about how Blood Cultures really got started, why he decided to remain anonymous, putting out the first single, Indian Summer, and how it was super successful basically immediately when he put it up online. I mean, not to discredit the amount of work that went into that song, but once it was out, it exploded. So he told us about that and how overwhelming it was. He talked about putting out his first record, Happy Birthday, and the reason why there was a big gap in between putting out that first song and putting out the record. He talked about adding members to Blood Cultures and not having it just be a solo project. And he told us all about the new project he has coming out with Blood Cultures called LUNO. This interview will be up on all the streaming platforms, but it will also be up on our Facebook page and YouTube channel, and you can check out our past interviews there. A lot of them are video. Obviously, this one isn't because we got to remain anonymous, but a lot of them are videos. You can check those out. Facebook page, YouTube channel at Bringing It Backwards. It'd be awesome if you subscribe to our channel, like us on Facebook, and follow us on Instagram and Twitter and now TikTok at Bringing Back Pod.
We'd appreciate your support if you follow and subscribe to our podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts.
We're bringing it backwards with Blood Cultures. Awesome. So this podcast is all about your journey in music and Blood Cultures, and we'll talk about the most recent record, if that's cool.
That's great. Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. I know you like to keep yourself mysterious, so I don't know how comfortable you are with talking about where you were born and raised.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that I've can you hear me okay, by the way? I just want
I
to
can
make
hear
sure
you.
that's
Yeah,
okay,
I can hear you
beautiful.
Great.
I'm from New Jersey.
Okay.
I was born in New Jersey and raised in New Jersey. And now I live in Brooklyn.
Right on. What was it like growing up there? How did you get into music?
It's a great question. I think it's just from my friends, from my family. I think music has always kind of played an important part in my identity, and kind of like the way. I don't know how true this is anymore for a lot of people. Maybe this is just me being an adult, but I felt like when I was a kid, what you listened to really defined who you were, at least in terms of who you were to other people and how you kind of represented yourself. So I think that there was always this idea of this artwork representing something about yourself.
Sure. No, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, because certain artists that you listen to, you almost associate your friend groups with that. It's like it kind of drew people together in a sense.
Yeah, absolutely. It's music is sort of the great connector.
Totally. And what was the first instrument you learned?
I want to say guitar. I picked up the guitar when I was like 13 or so. I think that was around the time when everybody started listening to like indie rock and like it quote unquote indie rock, Modest Mouse, Franz Ferdinand, The Strokes, these kind of guys, the Interpol, people like this in the early 2000s that were like taking over. I think everybody wanted to be in a rock band,
Sure.
I think it's just like what my friends wanted to do. And I was like, yeah, all right. And I just kind of went for that. But then my sister had a keyboard, and I kind of picked that up and just picked up a few instruments along the way too. I remember going to Guitar Center and asking for a synth pedal, because I wanted my guitar to sound like a synthesizer. And they're like, yeah, that doesn't exist. And they're like, you just want to play the synthesizer.
You're like,
you
oh.
just buy one of those. I was like, oh, okay.
Maybe is that what you did? Did you buy a synth?
I didn't. I'm kind of like I'm kind of a minimalist when it comes to the equipment that I use, and I just use what I have, and I tend to not use a lot of hardware if I don't know if I need it. So I just used my sister's old keyboard and ran it through a few pedals and kind of made it sound more like the synths that I wanted.
Oh, cool.
So just trying to be as resourceful as possible, and that's actually what led me down to, down the line to recording, because nobody wanted to make synth pop with me. So everybody else was in like metal bands and hardcore bands. So and I was in their bands, and it's not that I don't like that music. I actually really appreciate it, but it just wasn't the music that I wanted to make. So it was kind of like me recording with, I think at the time I just had like a video camera. So I would take the audio from the video camera and like use that to make loops, and then record over that, and then record over that. So that's kind of how I got into recording and producing my own stuff.
Wow. So you'd use it like a video camera, and then just delete the video part and just take the audio and use it as like almost like your own like Zoom recorder type thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's creative.
Yeah, I mean, that's there's probably a better way to do it.
But still, I mean, to think that outside of the box, in the sense of like, okay, this records sound, so I'm gonna just take the sound part of it. I'm gonna use that in the program and then loop that piece of sound. I mean, that's pretty brilliant.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I mean, it was just the idea. I don't know if it's brilliant. I don't know if I could take that compliment.
For back in the day, though. You know what I mean?
For being a kid, yeah. I think it was just like what was around. I had access to a keyboard. I had access to a video recording software, and it wasn't until later that I had gotten access to audio editing and recording software, and it was, it's just always like exploring. Like I like to just try to be as resourceful as possible, and just really hone in on one thing and just use that to its fullest extent. And that's usually just whatever's around me.
Got it. Well, with Blood Cultures, was that something, because that kind of formed, that was just you, right, in the beginning?
Yeah.
So was that what you were sort of going to when you were creating those pop synth songs, using the video camera and stuff?
I've definitely, that was like when I was a kid, so I've definitely evolved a lot more since then.
Well, sure, but it was kind of like this, that's kind of where you're going. I mean, in the similar vein.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that there's definitely, that's like the roots of everything is like just experimenting and trying new things and trying to do stuff with the resources that I have, which is, just really me at the end of the day. It's like, that's my biggest resource, is just myself and my time. I think, like getting into vocals and stuff like that, that was always very uncomfortable for me. But that was, a lot of people, either I didn't know them or at the time, or I just, they didn't want to do the kind of music that I wanted to make. So it even just adding vocals was like just me trying to be resourceful. And I was just like, oh, okay, because I can just do it myself. So it was kind of like a last ditch effort. I was like, okay, I guess I'll do it.
Was that what was that like? Was it terrifying or?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's sort of the origin of Blood Cultures, was that, behind the anonymity was really, I was just talking about stuff in a very, like, I think it's hard for me to make, I really kind of don't like music that's not true. I mean, I was going to say I don't like music with a lot of substance, but I didn't want to make music that didn't have a lot of substance. And that usually meant writing something that was pretty raw or drawing from my own experience. But that itself is really scary. And, I think people alone just have a hard time talking about their feelings. Just in general day-to-day life. So having that being on a recording and having you, really bring out all those emotions and put them on display is like a really, invasive kind of.
Sure.
Yeah. So I think, and it was also kind of uncomfortable for me because there's a lot of things I wouldn't talk to like my friends and the people in my life about. And those are the things where I was making music about. I ended up singing about them. So, and writing about them. So I just felt like it was a lot more comfortable for me to sort of distance myself from it and be able to make a character and be able to make an image that wasn't necessarily me, and people could draw from not necessarily my my story directly, but be able to draw from their own stories and be able to relate to the underlying meaning of it rather than my whole history and having all the context of that.
Sure. Well, I'm curious on I want to get into that because that's super fascinating to me, but I'm curious, like when you started making music in your room with the video camera and creating that synth pop sound, when you started singing, like when you started first putting your voice onto those songs, were you still pretty young at that point, or where were you in your musical career?
That was pretty late.
Really?
Yeah. I really wanted to just make beats, and I wanted to be behind the scenes and be like, okay, now somebody else sing it, somebody else do it.
Sure.
And it's sort of like I was just sort of waiting around for somebody to have the right, for all the waiting for all the pieces all the stars to align, and for me to meet the right creative partner to be the vocalist and really take on that responsibility. But at the end of the day, I think I just got tired of waiting, and I probably recorded. It probably started as just recording some scratch vocals of like, oh, this is the melody I like, and then I was like, oh, that that kind of works. So I think that's probably where it started. But yeah, it was definitely not the intention. I think I became I think of myself as a producer first. I think of myself as a everything else, singer, musician, etc. Second. I think my main instrument isn't necessarily my voice or my writing, or it's the production. And I think that's what makes blood cultures.
I found that interesting because your voice is really good. I mean, it's like, it's not like you can't sing, you know what I mean? So I'm curious, like was that something you had to like really work on, or was it kind of early on where you're like, I'm actually pretty good at this, I should just keep going with releasing,
I don't think I've ever had that level of confidence.
Really?
To be like, oh, you know what? I'm great.
Well, not like that, but it's like where it's like you listen back, you're like, yeah, okay, like I can do this on my own, and I feel comfortable enough with how it sounds to put it out to the world.
It's tough. I think it's like, I think everybody can relate to hearing their own voice and cringing.
Sure. I mean, I did radio for 16 years. I remember hearing myself for the first time. I was like, that's what I sound like. Who the hell would want to listen to that?
Does it ever still happen to you where you're like,
oh yeah,
whoa.
I mean, I've been hearing my own voice for so long doing radio and podcasting that it's like, yeah, I don't really get that as much as I just know what it's going to sound like. But it's like for years, I mean, I would even hear it back. Like I would think it sounded like something and I'd play it back. I'm like, ugh, that's what I sound like.
Yeah, I think what I learned was like, oh, I can kind of sing different than the way that I talk. And I think that's sort of like what made me a little bit more comfortable with it. Was like, oh, I can sort of emote differently or sing differently. And I think, I don't know, I think this is my first audio recorded interview. So,
really?
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you doing this, man. That's cool.
Thank you for having me. I'm curious if people will think the same, like, oh, that guy doesn't sound like the the other guy. So I'm curious. I don't know. But that's
or we could just say that, maybe this really isn't you. You know what I mean? Because nobody knows.
I can't confirm or deny that.
So. I love it. Well, okay. So you put out your first song. Was the first time you released something kind of under this solo project? Was it a Black Blood Culture song?
Yeah. I mean, I'd been making music for a while at that point, but nothing was really working, or it was, but even if it wasn't what I wanted it to be. I felt like there was a sort of itch that I was trying to scratch, and I was trying to do more stuff with more softer stuff. I think I was making a lot of harder music, and I was like, I don't know if this is where I'm at.
Okay.
And it was.
Did any of that see the light of day, or is it all just kind of on your computer?
Yeah, but it was under different projects and different different stuff. So Blood Cultures started with that sort of urge to do something more emotional and something more guitar driven, I guess, which not a lot of the songs are still guitar driven. So I think we've departed from that. But I think that's where it started. And in terms of understanding what worked and what didn't work, it was like, it started with just a song, and I just made one song, and then I made another one. And I had these two songs, and I didn't know if they were the same project or if they were and there's one called Indian Summer and one called Mevi Hedel, which are both on the first record. But I didn't know what to do with them, because it was like, is this the same project even? I don't even know. So it kind of took me a minute to grasp what I wanted to do with them. And I kind of had the idea of making this project that wasn't focused on me. It was a character and something that I love horror movies, and that was something that was kind of scary or kind of creepy. And I had this idea to wear the hood and do that. So I kind of all happened really quickly once I realized what I was going to do. So I put it all together and just put it out on the internet. And it was Indian Summer was the first one I put out, and that one really took off. A lot of people seemed to really like it. And
was it, you put it up on SoundCloud?
I put it on SoundCloud, and I didn't really put anything else out there. It was just the single, and I think people kind of got it right away. They're like,
did people find it? Like, do you remember like seeing kind of it moving? Like, I mean, like, when did the success of it kind of start happening? Do you remember?
It was, I mean, I don't want to say it was overnight success, because that sounds really bad.
Well, but the truth is the truth. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like sometimes it happens, and that's just how it is.
The reason I'm weary of saying stuff like that is because it's been years of hard work of developing that and facing that and all this stuff. So it's not that it just happened in one night. It was just the release was done really swiftly, I guess. And then I put it out, and I just woke up to all these messages and all these, like, had a bunch of plays and stuff, and it was posted all over the place, and it's like, oh wow.
Whoa. So it was like you put it up and it kind of just it really happened like right away.
Yeah. I kind of slept through most of it, I guess, because I woke up and I was like, oh wow.
Oh my gosh. That's right. Yeah, like you said, but yeah, to defend you too, like, yeah, it wasn't an overnight success because you did work your ass off and put a bunch of time and effort and into the song and creating it. But once it saw the light of day, people got it like right away.
Yeah, I think people like really, it resonated with people. And I've been kind of, that after that, I was like, well, a lot of people had just messaged me and were like expecting the next thing. And they're like, oh, what's up? What's going on? We'd love to talk to you. And I was just like, I have one song.
Like record people or like who, or just fans?
It was all over the place. It was like blogs and labels and fans, and everybody just wanted to. And yeah, it was a really, going from having like zero audience to, this really big opportunity. It felt very, it was really surreal to me, where I was like,
Sure.
he's like, are you sure? Like, you sure you're talking to the right person? But that was sort of the point where I realized that blood cultures could sort of be my vessel, and it could really be something that worked and resonated with people. Because I think, excuse me, I think that's what I always wanted to do, is just make work that resonates with people.
Sure.
And if I kind of saw that, and I was like, okay, I can do this. And that was really, I didn't know if I could before, I
Yeah,
think
you got
that
validating moment for you there with
absolutely. Yeah.
Well, okay, so these labels and people are reaching out to you, and at that point, what are you like overwhelmed? Are you like, now is it one of those things where it's like, okay, now I have one other song, is it gonna hit the same way? Like, what were you feeling?
Yeah, it was very, like, very overwhelming for sure. I really didn't think it out. I didn't really think it through. I didn't think it would work. So, like, the fact that people, like, really liked it was a shock to me. And the fact that I had to make more now was like, oh, I have to make more songs. So it kind of, that's where I realized, like, oh, I can do this. But, I think after that, I wasn't sure what I wanted. I wasn't sure what I wanted, and not only what I wanted, but what the project needed and what the project was. It was so much of figuring out all this stuff, beyond just the identity of the project, but the music itself, and how I defined it. Like, what was it about that song, and do I have to do that again? And like, what does it mean to be blood culture? So I didn't really have those answers at the time. So I kind of just, like, and I mean, no offense to anybody who reached out to me during that time, because I just didn't email anybody back, and
Wow.
I didn't reach out to anybody, because I just didn't feel, it didn't feel right. It would feel like a lie if I said I had it all figured out, and this is blood cultures. And, even if I had a bunch of music that I wanted to share, it's like, it just didn't feel right to what blood cultures was. I wanted to explore that and really understand it before,
Like giving it away
reemerging,
almost.
yeah. Like, I just didn't want to put it out there with no thought. So after that was just, like, really, really diving into it and thinking about it, and maybe overthinking about it. Definitely overthinking about it. And I'm sure a lot of artists can relate to that.
Sure. Well, when you put the song out, obviously the identity and everything of your band and yourself is, not, it's hidden, which is rad, and people probably are drawn to that as well. But like were people asking about you, like, oh, like, how did you respond, in the sense that you said, like, this is kind of a project that is going to remain, like, almost anonymous?
Yeah, I think people are still waiting for me to like stop it.
You're like a Banksy.
Yeah, I think they're still waiting for me to just knock it off and be like, all right, come on, come on, who are you? What are you doing?
Sure.
But I think it's not a gimmick, and I think that's, like, the difference. I think there's plenty of anonymous artists, and I think there's plenty of people who, like, wear masks and whatever. And I'm not knocking on them. I don't think that that's bad. I think it's really rad. I think it's really cool. And just for me, what it means to me, it's just something more than that. And that's not going to go. That's integral. That's where it started. And I mean, who knows? Like, I think that. I guess that's sort of where I'm at right now in terms of this project and what I've been doing lately. It's really all been about change, and really redefining what the project and what the music is. So I don't want to say I'm going to do it forever, but it's not something that I feel like I have to do. And I feel like it's with the mission in mind of, like, creating music that really resonates with people. If I can do that while still keeping my anonymity, and that's maybe something that's amplifying that, then I'd like to continue to do that.
Sure. Was it always that way? Like, was this always the mission behind the whole project, was to keep it anonymous?
Not really. I mean, I think the initial idea was to just like have an like I think I've said this before in a few written interviews. I just mentioned that like just not I didn't see myself, like I think that
Mm-hmm.
there's some people who can listen to, you listen to a country song or something and you imagine the single artwork or the band, the press photo of just like, a person standing in a field with a guitar by the railroads or whatever.
Sure.
Like you can kind of paint that picture. But I just, and the same tropes for indie pop artists, same
Mm-hmm.
tropes. And I just didn't want to, I just don't want it to be about myself. I just didn't want it to be about me. I want it to be about something bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And something that is something I could use, that I thought was cool. Like I think that theatrics and I think that you know costuming and all these things are cool and interesting. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that the story that I could craft with Blood Cultures was kind of cool. It's like, oh, this is kind of the way I'd like to see music being presented. So it's like, okay, why don't I just do that myself?
Mm-hmm.
Because like I said, just when I closed my eyes and listened to the music, I wasn't like, oh yeah, this is this person and they're doing this thing, and um, it's just not. I just didn't want it to be centered around me, I think is the short answer.
I kind of, I mean, I really like respect that. I like that. It's like you're letting people just appreciate the music and not like, go off of what you're looking like or what you're doing or these things. It's just as simple as, here's the song and take it as it is.
Yeah, I think especially in this day and age, man, like, with character, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the first impulse whenever I don't know if everybody feels this way. Maybe you do, but when you listen to a song and you really you really like an artist, you really just discover an artist you like. So the first thing I do is like look them up and I'm like, who are they? What are they doing? Like, what have they done? And
Right. Go to their
uh,
Instagram or yeah.
yeah, or Wikipedia or whatever.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it's just um that's my impulse too. I'm not different in that regard. Um, but I think that there's something to that where you can always be disappointed. You always have the potential of being like, oh, this person is a scumbag, or oh, this like I don't appreciate any of the other work or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I really wanted to make something in a vacuum. That was like, especially like the reason I mentioned in this day and age is that I feel like so many of personally my heroes, people that I've looked up to, have really disappointed me in terms of what information has come out about them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's sort of a conversation that's still ongoing.
Sure.
So it's like, that I think it comes down to the idea of, can you separate the art from the artist? And I don't know. I don't know if we can. I don't know if it's, I don't know if I can, So like, there's plenty of artists that I no longer listen to, and it's really sad because they made, despite their actions and their character, they made something that really resonated with me or with a lot of people at a certain time. And, first of all, I think that that's whatever they, I'm being very vague about this, but like, I think that at the end of the day, your actions do define you and your artwork does define you as well.
Sure.
So if you limit that, if you really, really hone in on that and say, no, I'm not going to say anything, like you're not going to know the good. You're not going to know the bad. You're not going to know anything. The music will stand on its own. And the artwork will stand on its own. And if it resonates with you in a certain way, then that's great. And if you find it in a vacuum and you don't listen to any other Blood Culture songs besides the one that you like, then that's fine.
Sure.
I think that it's sort of like there's a function to music, and there's a function to art, and it's very cathartic. And if you can find that in what I'm doing, then that's great. And I think that's the goal.
Well, I love that. And I mean, I'm curious because you put out that song Indian Summer in 2013.
That's it. Yeah.
And you didn't put out the first record. The first record came out in 2017. So you had some years in there. Were you trying to build the album, or like what was happening in those, 4 years in between?
Great question. What was happening? It's I guess the sort of hard truth about it is Happy Birthday was done in 2015.
Oh, okay.
And I had never put it out until 2017. And I think it came from a combination of confusion and fear and like all these other factors that I was just sitting on it for so long because I just didn't know what to do, and I didn't know how to define blood cultures. I was still in that sort of phase of being so unsure about things. And I think what I've learned from that was just like, you're never going to be sure. Even when I put it out years after it was done, it was just like, I'm still not ready. I could still work on this forever. And it's at that point, what's the point? Like if the record is I think the goal was to create something timeless. I really I was really obsessed with this idea of making something timeless. And I don't think that exists. Like I can point to records and be like, oh, Discovery is a timeless record, or the first Gorillaz record, or something like this. But they're not. They might be timeless to me because they were impactful and they meant something to me at a time. But first of all, they both draw on inspirations from the past, and they're also still a snapshot in time of 2000, 2001, or whenever those records came out. And it's sort of an impossible thing to make something timeless when you live in a time and you're influenced by a time. So I think that is just sort of the acceptance of it, where I was just like, well, this will never really be that. This will always be, in my mind, it was 2015, but this will always be. And it was sort of getting older. It was like I was sitting on it and it was getting older, and it was like it feels too of the time, and that's sort of what scared me about it. And then it sort of just realized I was like getting later, and I was like, oh, the time is changing. So I can sit on this forever and just be like, okay, well, this was a timeless record in 2015.
Sure.
but now it's not, because so I think it was just sort of that combination of things. And I think that was something that I feel like where I'm at right now and with the current project is sort of the opposite, where it's just embodying the sort of snapshot nature of life. And artwork representing a moment in time, rather than trying to make something that is bigger than that. I think that naturally comes. I think that the idea of what something is to other people is created by that snapshot, because that snapshot becomes something that is representative of a time, and that's okay. I think I was just really not okay with that idea for a long time.
Well, when did you so you put the record out, you obviously you have a band. Was it hard? When did you add members to Blood Cultures, and was that done after you had released the second record?
That was done between first and second record.
Okay. And was the second record was it all written and done by you, and then you just used the members as like a live band?
Yes, but
okay.
I think that I just wanted to give a little bit of insight, or like a little bit of a footnote there. It's just, I think that what the band does and when we play live is a completely different and unique experience rather than the record, and that's done because of their contributions. So what you're hearing when we play live is a combination of everybody that's on stage. It's not just me that is the one directing it. It's a very democratic process, and it really it's important to me that the band would gel together and would create something that was unique and still fit within the world, while not just like trying to recreate it. That was the goal, was to not recreate it, but to create something else that was inspired by it. Okay. So, excuse me, I just wanted to be clear that it's like, I don't want to be diminishing about the band's contribution.
It's not here's the songs and this is how you play it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. Was it difficult? I mean, I can't imagine trying to like find members, trying to, remaining anonymous and then finding members for your band, and then also having that aspect of, like you were talking about, being vulnerable in front of people, and it was hard for you to even sing on the first recordings. And that's kind of what led you to wanting to remain anonymous. Was it difficult to bring members into your project? And was it like hard to be vulnerable in the sense of now you have to sing and teach these songs to other people?
Yes.
Okay. Tell me how that was.
What was that? The short answer is yes.
Could you tell me what was that? That was like how that was?
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's sort of like you gotta get over it at some point. It's like, there's one of my favorite quotes is just be afraid and do it anyway. It's like,
I like
okay,
that.
Okay, you're afraid. Well, do it anyway. Because, you're like I was saying before with the record, and waiting on it. It's like, you're never going to be ready. You're never going to be ready to play the best show or the worst show of your life. You're never going to be ready to get up on stage. And if you're shy about that and sing in front of all these people, it's and be vulnerable and really break down a song and really hope that, the people that you're working with like it. And, you're never going to be ready for it. If anybody is listening that feels that way, that's waiting, just stop. Just stop waiting. Just do it. Because I wish I'd listened to that advice a little bit sooner. I don't regret anything in terms of the way things came to be, sitting on the record and all this stuff, because it led me to where I am now. And I'm not regretful of that. But I think the one thing I've learned is that I'm never gonna feel like it's still surreal to me today to see people so dedicated and loving of this project. It doesn't compute with me on a personal level, because I don't I don't think I'll ever understand it. So I'm never, like, even now I'm still not, I still question everything, and I still question.
That kind of, it's almost like the imposter syndrome type
deal. Oh yeah. But it's just like, okay, it is what it is. Like you move, then you move on. Like, sure. You've done something that's impacted people. I think that's it. It's just like, we have like a tremendous responsibility. And I think people often don't think of themselves as being responsible for other people. We're like, oh, I have to take care of myself, and that's that. But at the end of the day, the truth is like, we take care of each other, and we are what we put out into the world. That's what defines us. So, if you're putting out, grumpy vibes, and you're just a negative person, and, that's what you do, and maybe you're an angry person, maybe you're a destructive person, whatever, and that's what you do to yourself, chances are that's what you're going to be putting out into the world, and that's what you're going to be getting to. So it's like, and you think that it's got nothing to do with you when things go bad or when the world is crumbling, but it's you have a responsibility. We all have a responsibility. We have, like, I think that people think that there's this idea of learned helplessness. I think that society kind of puts us in a position of being like, helpless. We need to do certain things in order to be valuable to the society. Mm-hmm. But the truth is like, what we do is, there you go, right? Like, there is your power. You are capable of bringing value to society, but so many people diminish that and say like, oh, I can't, or I'm not able to. Yeah, you can. Like, I think, and that's the thing, is like, oh, well, it's not me, it's not my problem, whatever. And I think a lot of people, I don't think I'm alone in this. I think a lot of people are understanding that their silence, their, their thought, the idea that they are not responsible is changing. That I think that mentality is changing, because when it comes down to it on a political level or on a bigger level, right? Like we see so much societal and political change, hopefully, question mark, that is happening now. Or you can just even say it's a shift in public conscious, or I don't want to say public consciousness, collective consciousness, societal consciousness, where we're being more understanding of our impact on other people. And that's always been the case. Like you walk by somebody on the street and it's sort of like the butterfly effect. If whatever you're giving them is like affecting another person, right? So if you give them a smile, or you give them a frown, and whatever, like whatever it is that you are contributing to that person, you're effectively changing the world. It's just, we don't think about it on that scale. We don't think about it on the scale of like, oh, well, that person is made out of the same stuff that the universe is made out of. And that person is made out of the same stuff that trees and the sun and the earth are made out of. And so am I. And here we are affecting the universe affecting the universe, because we're made of the same stuff. Sure. So it's not different. And I think people think often like, oh, I can't, like, I'm incapable. You're capable. When you think about it on that level, it's like everything you do matters. And that can be scary. I think that's what was so scary for me for so long, was I'm like too scared to move, because if I move, then I could affect the world in a way that's not what I want, or not representative of me. But I think that it's like you have to move, and you have to do your best. Well, you don't have to. I think you have to.
You don't have to, but you should.
You don't have to. I think you should, but
right.
That's my own dogma.
Well, with
whatever you want.
With were you playing live at all prior to having the other members of the band?
Not as Blood Cultures, no.
Oh, okay. So it didn't come to, and then when you decided that, was that kind of part of the reason why you wanted to have other members of the, like, what made you decide, like, this shouldn't be just me anymore?
I think it just come down to, I think I'm just a visual person, because I think it comes down to like how I saw it. And I just didn't see it that way. I didn't see it as like a DJ set, or like, a solo person. I just didn't see it that way. I saw it as a band, and I think it kind of needed to be, like, in order to fulfill that vision.
Well, dude, I love the band, man. I was watching, I lived in San Francisco for a while, and I've been to the Rickshaw Stop a handful of times. So I watched your guys. There's somebody that put up on YouTube, like, your performance at the Rickshaw Stop, and it was really good. And it was just like off somebody's phone or whatever. But I was really blown away. And did it take some convincing with the people in the band to say, hey, like, this is going to be like totally anonymous. Like, you can't, I don't want anybody to like reveal who they are, and that whole thing.
I mean, there was definitely, I think we talked about like the principles of the project, because I don't think I don't think that's easy to grasp at first, but no, I think that's what makes us work well together, is a shared philosophy and an understanding of what this project is. And we all understand, it's something that's bigger than us. And yeah, I think it's just finding I think what took me so long to figure it all out and bring all these people together was finding people that had that like-minded thinking.
Okay. And was that a process? I mean, I'm sure it wasn't just the first 4 people that you had audition or join. were the members, or was it that quick?
It was a process. It was definitely a process. And I think there was, well, I tried to do it before, and it didn't work out, and I think that was sort of demoralizing, and that's sort of what pushed things back even more. Okay. But no, I think that the people that are in the band and the part of this are something that, even if they wanted to leave Blood Cultures tomorrow, which is their prerogative, that's any individual's choice. I think we'll all have something that we created together, you know, like that show in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And those memories that people have, like that we did that. It wasn't me. It was us. And I think that's that those are the principles that I was looking for. It's like somebody who also understood that.
It's so cool to have, I'm sure, for them too, to work with somebody that it doesn't want to be all about them. You know what I mean? It's not like they're joining a band and you're like, all right, I'm going to be the front guy and you're going to play this and you're going to play this and you're going to play this. And that's going to be how it is.
Well, I try not to do that. You know, I try to be as aware of it as possible. Like you're essentially the director, right? And you want to sort of put people in the right place, and really block the scene as best as you can. But it's not your job. You know, the director's job isn't to tell an actor how to act, or a writer how to write. It's for them to direct that, you know, to direct certain energies. So that's really the way I try to think about it, is like, okay, I can sort of push you in a certain way. It's a lot like production, I think, you know, like when you're working with somebody, and you can kind of direct the song or the session or whoever, you know, is performing. You can sort of direct it a certain way. So I think that that's sort of my role in it, is sort of like that
director role, so to speak. I love that. I'm curious where this the new project that's coming out, LUNO, where was this something that you're writing solo or on your own, or is this record's a collaborative thing?
This is it's the same format, really. It's all you know, it's all blood cultures. I'll say that, you know, it's all still blood cultures.
Okay.
And I think, yeah, I struggle to call it an album. I still think of it as a project, because the way I think of it is a sort of, you know, the way I wanted to release it, which has been, you know, single by single, is sort of the way that I saw it. Again, going back to the idea of visualizing. I think I visualized it this way. It's like, oh, each of these will sort of stand alone, but tell a collective story. And maybe that's just what an album is. But and it's not that they don't have a thematic through line. They have a very clear thematic through line, and you know, they work well with each other, but they're also different, and they're also you know, unique. And like I said, that if you only heard one of them and you didn't like the rest of them, I think that's sort of what I was going for, was being like, okay, this song is completely different than this one. And it's okay if you don't have to like both. You don't have to like blood cultures. I don't expect that. I just expect you to like the song, you know?
Right.
So that's why I kind of think of it more just as a project, or as like something that's a little bit more abstract than a linear album.
Okay. And was this something, like, tell me where you were in when like this whole virus hit, and how did that like affect the record? Was it something you already had written and you kind of were like, oh, now I got to hold on to this thing? Like, tell me how did that affect the album at all, or the project at all?
It allowed me to do more of it quicker.
Okay.
Because otherwise we would have been touring and doing more other stuff. But I was able to sort of have stuck, so I had to.
Okay.
I didn't have another choice.
But you were able to stay inspired to work on it, because I've talked to people that were like so, you know, uninspired by the whole thing, or just, you know, you're worried and then everything, you know, and then it's like, okay, now I've been sitting inside for a year. Like, how much more inspiration am I going to get out of this, you know, apartment or whatever?
Interesting. That's an interesting look at it. I feel like I kind of had the opposite. I feel like that the record, and maybe the project as a whole, I don't know if I can define it as such, but it's such it's really introspective. It's all about, you know, thematically and the way it's written. It's all about introspection. It's all about individual change, and I was able to do that really well in quarantine, because I was left to myself and to my own devices. So
sure, a lot of individual change, I'm sure, was happening between, you know, with everybody at that point.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think that, you know, going back to the idea of like like understanding your value, understanding your worth, understanding what you're capable of. That can't happen. We're really programmed in a way that we're kind of told that, and I don't want to speak for everybody, but I can only speak to myself and understanding my upbringing and the institutions that I was raised in, whether that be any institution, but I really think that we're programmed to really to survive, and that's fine. But survival doesn't mean living. And in order to live, you have to really choose. You have to really choose the kind of choose what to embrace and choose what to focus on. So I think that I don't know where I was going with this, honestly. I forgot what the question was.
Oh, I was wondering if you were able to stay inspired to write. Like, you said this whole record was written in quarantine, so I was curious.
Yeah,
how you're able to stay inspired.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's all. I guess, yeah. Like, I think it's more inspired by. It was inspired by what's happening in the world. It's inspired by, the desire for change. I think that sort of is sort of a collective understanding. Is like, okay, we all want change, but how do we do it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you saw, like, during the Black Lives Matter movement at its height, everybody was like, okay, this is wrong. Like, what is happening in the world is wrong. And I think, and I don't want to speak for everybody in the world, but it's subjectively wrong. And what can you really do about it is the question. It's like, well, how can you create change? How can you create change without I guess without violence, without hatred? How do you actually create that? And I think when you look at what these systems are, what these institutions are, what these governments are, they're just people. They're all just people, and people can be confused. People can be dissuaded. They can be persuaded, and they can be shifted. So when it comes down to it, it's like, if you can, if you can change yourself, people can change. Mm-hmm. And if people can change, the system can change. Mm-hmm. I don't have this idea of hopelessness. I think that I'm much more inspired by it. The idea that we can change. So I think that's where I was at, was just like, if I want to talk about that, if I want that to be my message, I have to embody it. Mm-hmm. So I think that.
Sorry, go ahead. I was gonna say that's a great perspective.
Oh, thank you. I mean, it's just where I was at. I think mm-hmm. that. I think it's what anybody can do. I think, like I said, we're a lot more powerful than we give ourselves credit for. And you're capable of change. Like, if you are hopeless, if you're feeling like the government and all these systems, all these sort of things are weighing you down, it's like, well, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. But it's like, but what are you gonna do about it? Mm-hmm. And I think that there's this sort of like crushing hopelessness, like, oh, well, I can't do anything. I'm just a small person in a big world. But it's like, but you're more than that, and you're mm-hmm. capable of more than that. And just understanding that, and looking at that, I'm not saying this to inflate my own ego, or inflate anybody's ego for that record, but we're capable of that. We're capable of that change. And if you can show that, if you can demonstrate that, then you can only hope to inspire people to do the same.
Mm-hmm. I like the message. And I can't wait to hear the rest of the record. I know it's coming out here next week, next Friday.
Yeah, that's weird.
That's excited, or is it going to be interesting because the world hasn't completely opened up yet?
I don't know. I think most of the records actually already out. Uh-huh. It's like 4 out of 8 are already out. So it's like, I think people generally like those. So I think people will like it. I like it. I think it's just, I think it's just a matter of if it resonates with people, that's great. And mm-hmm. like I said, I think of this much more on an individual scale. Mm-hmm. So if you find this without the context of the rest of the record, or without the context of my history and the work that Blood Cultures has done, like, that's fine.
Well, thank you so much for doing this, man.
Thank you.
And it means a lot that this has been the first audio recording interview.
Yeah,
I mean, that's huge.
I guess I was a little bit nervous about that.
Well, I
but
appreciate it, man. This has been fun. I hope it was.
no, you thank you. I feel I didn't feel nervous once we started. So
I'm glad. I'm glad. Well, I do have one more question for you before I let you go. I want to know do you have any advice for aspiring artists?
Oh, I feel like I gave so much advice.
You did. I don't know if you want to sum it up in a.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I think just do it. Just be. I don't want to say that. That's terrible. That's Nike. That's bad advice.
No.
I think just understand what you're capable of. I think like I said, I think we're conditioned to think that we're powerless. You're more powerful than you could ever think. What your effect is on the world, on the people, on the universe, it's real. It's real and it's undoubtable. So don't think that you're so small. Don't think that you're so tiny in this. You can whatever it is, just do it.